My name is Louis Supple. I'm an adventurer, endurance athlete and communications consultant living and working in London. Since 2015, I've run thousands of kilometres in some of the most inhospitable climates on the planet. I've run through the Sahara Desert, the Amazon rainforest, the Himalayan mountains, and most recently travelled to the Arctic. The latest ultramarathon in the Arctic really inspired me to plan a much longer polar adventure. So in a few days, I'll be travelling to Svalbard, a small island in the high Arctic, to ski from the east coast to the west coast, carrying everything I need to survive in a small sled. Not only do I enjoy the physical and mental challenge of these adventures, I also enjoy the sense of reconnecting with nature and also use these as a good opportunity to raise money for charities that I'm passionate about. Now, I think another big motivation for going to the Arctic, and especially Svalbard, is that climate change is a very real threat, not only to the ice caps on Svalbard, but also to the wildlife that live there. There's a significant danger that in 20 years' time, Svalbard will no longer exist. I hope that this expedition helps raise the profile of Svalbard and some of the dangers that it's facing. I'm a little bit worried about polar bears. In Svalbard, there are more polar bears than there are people. Given that I'm on skis trying to trek across the ice cap, we don't want to get too close to polar bears because, after all, they are the largest carnivores, land carnivores on the planet. So we've taken all sorts of precautions to minimise the risk of us ever getting into a situation where we might end up as dinner for a polar bear. We put a perimeter around our camp, so if a polar bear does wander in, we get alerted, and we carry bear spray, flares, and as a last resort have guns to protect ourselves against them. If you come face to face with a polar bear, you don't really stand much of a chance, but I think if we ever get in that situation, we will have made a lot of mistakes. I'm worried about the cold. It can get as low as -30 and -40, so those are temperatures that I have experienced in the ultramarathon in the Arctic last year, in Arctic Lapland, but I think when it's that cold, you just have to be really careful in your preparation and make sure you have all bases covered. And that's why it's been great working with Outdoor GB. They stock a range of amazing brands that are really pushing the boundaries in terms of the materials and technologies they're using for their garments. And I feel very confident that all the kit that I have is going to keep me not only really warm in these quite extreme temperatures, but also do not compromise on how functional they are, and they're very lightweight. They allow me to move easily whilst also keeping me warm and dry. The key to these sort of endurance challenges are making sure that you do not sweat too much, because it's so cold. If you sweat, then you run the risk of getting a hypothermia when you stop, because if you've got wet clothing, then that will quickly freeze and you are going to really start struggling with being able to get your body temperature up again. All the brands that I'm working with are using the latest technologies and are very efficient in wicking away sweat, but also retaining heat. So that's really important for me when I'm going to be sweating quite a lot. It'll get that sweat away from my body, whilst also keeping me nice and toasty. In terms of the actual layering each day, it's going to depend on how cold it is and the conditions. One day it might be very windy, in which case I might use the Gore-Tex windstopper that Berghaus have provided. So I'll mostly be using the Berghaus Extreme range. This range has been developed specifically by Berghaus for extreme environments like the Arctic. I often get asked what's the point, and I can always see where they're coming from. After all, I'm not the first person to ski across Svalbard. It's very, very cold, and I'm skiing for most of the day carrying a very heavy sled and then sleeping in a small tent in the middle of the glacier with polar bears all around you. So I can see how on the face of it does sound like a bit of a crazy idea, and lots of people would prefer to chill out on a beach. But for me, I really enjoy taking myself out of my comfort zone and really pushing the physical and mental boundaries. I think there's a lot of value to be had in exploring, what you can really do, It doesn't necessarily have to be going on extreme challenges like I do, but for me it's a very good way of developing as a person, and it gives me a lot of confidence in other aspects of my life, knowing that I can do these sort of extreme challenges. Well, obviously living in London is not ideal preparation for a challenge like this. For the cross-country skiing aspects, I train in Hyde Park on roller skis. I actually learned cross-country ski in Hyde Park 4 years ago. There's a really good company called Roller Ski there, and I did a quite intensive course. And then I've been doing a lot of gym work, so I need quite a strong core, and my lower half of the body needs to be very robust to be able to carry the sled, but also need to have good cardio because we're going to be skiing over 20 kilometers a day. So I've been doing a mixture of running, rowing, and then also doing a lot of weight training and CrossFit type workouts. Yeah, the only way you get saved, I think, is by a helicopter or something like that. There's only one option for me, and that is to get to the end. And the only way I'm not going to do that is if they sort of drag me off the ice cap. But obviously I don't take any risk. All those sort of things that you can't control. I wouldn't just keep going no matter what, but it would have to be something quite serious. I remember when I came back from the Arctic, and the first thing I heard was someone in Starbucks complaining about their coffee not being hot enough or something like that. Little things like that sound ridiculous when you've just sort of skied across the Arctic or run through the Amazon rainforest. In many ways, Svalbard is a preparation for a much longer trip next year to Greenland, when I hope to ski across the ice cap from the west coast to the east coast. And then you never know, hopefully I get to go to Antarctica one day as well. I'm passionate about writing and also photography, so a big part of this latest expedition is documenting the journey through writing and also photography. And moving forward, I really hope that's something that I will be able to marry, my love of exploration and adventure, but also my passion for writing, photography and filmmaking. Yeah, so the countdown is really on now. Got a few days before I catch my flight to Oslo. We'll spend the night in Oslo before heading up to Svalbard. I'm feeling well prepared. I've done all my training. I'm now tapering, which basically means sort of winding down before the expedition, letting my muscles recover. Done a heavy sort of training camp, I call it, where for 3 months I'm doing a lot of cardio and weight training, so I'm feeling in quite good shape. In the last few days I'll be looking to carbo load, so obviously in the cold environments you use a lot of energy, and you will likely lose a lot of weight as well. So I'm trying to eat a lot more, which is quite fun actually, get to eat whatever I like. But I'm feeling well prepared. I think good advice for anyone looking to do these sort of challenges is that preparation is almost 80% of the challenge. Getting there and making sure you have all the kit to allow you to survive in that environment is very important. I'm just going now for the enjoyable part of it, which is the skiing, which is what I've been looking forward to. So yeah, I just can't wait to get there really and get cracking. I think a lot of people have doubts, and then that's what puts them off really going on doing amazing things in their lives. But if you don't take a risk and go for something, you're never going to really explore what you're fully capable of.